I'm probably embarrassed to tell you what my actual decision to come to Canada was. I came from a very comfortable middle-class background in the UK. I'm English, British. My husband is Greek, Cypriot. And we came to Canada. As I said, this is going to sound really awful. We came for the money. We were given an offer of a very excellent job, and it sounded like we were going to be millionaires. And we came, as many people at that time came to Canada thinking, oh, I'll come here for a couple of years and we'll save and save and save, and then we'll go back to where we came from and be able to live the very nice life. And it's 30 odd years later and we're still here.
I come from a small fishing village. It's probably got about 15,000 people. Its main thrust is was holidaymakers, fishing, and the textile industries. Had the shoe industries before, but the shoe industries died out. Textiles died out, fishing died out, holidaymaking died out. So I had to leave. What
brought me here? That's a very interesting question. One of those that came because I followed my husband. My husband was already here at the University of Waterloo, and one summer he came home and we just got married. It was a sort of an arranged marriage, my parents and his parents. And of course we met each other and we decided we were okay to get married. And so I came here because of my husband, entirely for that reason.
Auschwitz, that's my hometown, where the biggest and the most notorious concentration camp ever existed. And I went through that camp. I lost my whole family, and I am the only survivor from quite a large family. And 1945, I was liberated in Bergen-Belsen, that's in Germany. We didn't have a place where to go. The doors were closed for the Jews. We couldn't emigrate any place. We tried. Finally, the Canadian government decided that they need tailors. And my husband was a professional tailor.
Several factors came in there. We have to go back to 1956. It was about the peak of the Cold War. The Russians had a blockade on Berlin, and the American answered with an airlift. The year before, Hungary uprising was brutally suppressed, so there was a lot of tension in Europe. We had to have gone through German occupation, and I certainly was not looking forward to another one by the Russians. Also, at a certain day, I saw on a map that Berlin, where the Russians were, was only 600 kilometers away from where we were. And in modern warfare, that distance is traveled in 6 to 10 hours, so we were very close to them. On top of that, I worked for the government, and I sometimes got bitterly fed up with the bureaucracy. And when the idea of immigration gets in your blood, it's just like the cold that creeps all over you.
My dad had to go to war, so my mom was alone and a lot of other ladies, but the Russians kept coming from the one side and they got closer and closer. The worst part that I remember was going to school and air raid sirens went off. The schools had to let the children out because too many schools had been hit by bombs. So they sent us all out, and we'd run along the streets, and people would pull us into the houses, to get out, because there weren't just the bombs that they were low-lying planes, and they would shoot at anything that moved on the street. I remember running from 3 to 3 and standing there till they passed, and then running to the next one and till I got home. All you hear about when you read is what the Germans did, but it was a war. The Americans had to do their part, their soldiers, and everybody did their part. And they came to do damage and to bomb Germany, so wherever the bombs fell, people died.
We came from the Philippines and the city of, from Quezon City. It all came about when martial law was declared in the Philippines at the time of Marcos. And my husband was here already. He came a year and a half ahead of us because he is a computer professional, and he just wanted to see what the possibilities or opportunities are in Canada. So he came ahead. But we all applied for immigrant. We were 38 years old at the time. So he came here as an immigrant. So when martial law was declared in 1972, my husband decided it's time for us to come too. So I bundled up my 6 children. We were a young family. I have 6 children, and ranging in age at the time from 2 years old to 12 years old. And I had a hard time coming here.
I saw an ad in the paper, Canada needs architects, engineers, so I said, that's the country. Of course, at that time, the border was wide open because we were like refugees first. It took a week to get here. And we had a choice between United States and, of course, Australia and Canada. Those were the 3 countries. So Australia was too far for me from Europe. US, I didn't want to go because they killed presidents. And I figured they have some kind of, social problems with American. And I thought, well, Canada never, imported African people to work here. They all came here for freedom. So I said, that's the country I want to go to.
We were picked up, and then she told us, oh boy, you don't come in a good time. There is not much work and not housing. I thought, oh, that's not a good sign. So he took us to a place in Grimsby. I still remember there were people standing on top of the stairs, and she said, oh, again a paar suckers. I felt like crying. I thought, boy, whatever did we do? And then somebody came, and she was involved with immigrants, and she said, oh, don't worry. I came here 5 years ago, and 5 years from now you will laugh about it.
I just didn't know what to expect. I arrived. The first year I really didn't like it. I was ready to walk back, if I could have. There was a language problem, there was a problem within my family, there was all sorts of difficulties that had to be overcome. And as I said, I could cheerfully have walked back if I had been able to. But then I adapted, and I'm home here now.
My mother did different jobs. She worked in a restaurant in the afternoon, and in the evening she went to clean offices. And we, as we got older, had for the first 2 years went and helped her so she would finish faster. And it was difficult. It was hard because I remember I would often find her crying, and wishing she could go back. And even though life here was much better than it was over there. I was 14 when we came over. So I went to school here for 2 years. I had to quit school when I turned 16 because my dad became sick and hospitalized. It was difficult because they didn't know the culture here. They couldn't speak the language. It was just a different type of life than what they had been used to, especially the last years with the war going on.
While I was at university, we tried to get summer jobs. A few of us tried to get summer jobs.
And it was the first time I came face to face with something that was unpleasant. I would go, we went to look for a job, for example, in a cinema, selling the tickets at the cinema. And I was told, yes, on the phone, that everything was going to be fine. And then when I got to the place, I was told that the job was taken. So I said, well, it isn't, because you just told me a few minutes ago. And he said, well, and I said, why is the sign still up? And he said, I'll take it down. And said, okay, and walked away. And my girlfriend said to me a little bit later, after we had walked up and down the street a little bit, she said, let us go back and see, because I've heard that sometimes these things happen. And when we went back, so the sign was up again. So I said, you really didn't want me to get this job. So he said, you want to cause trouble, you want to cause trouble. And I said, no, I just wanted to let you know that I'm aware that what you're doing is not right. But I wouldn't want the job anyway if you don't want me, so. But I was aware that that kind of thing could happen, but I thought it couldn't happen to me.
I came from Spain, and I was a teacher back at home. And I didn't start working for, I think, 4 years. But I was not feeling comfortable, not working. And then the problem started. Where do I go? How do I look for work here? What can I expect? I went to work in a factory. I am not a person to work in a factory. Routine is not for me. So 3 months later, out. Then, what is Summit Center today? It was not too far from my home. I just saw children playing. And I said, what is that? I asked, nobody seemed to know, so I just went in. I asked. I said, may I work as a volunteer? Sure. If I like it, I would like to stay. So I was not there for many days when they asked me, how do you like it? Fine. Are you interested in staying? Say yes. So I worked there for 23 years.
It was through Romania then, and he was a person who had an identity with Canada. Canada had an image that I had learned about, okay? So under Trudeau then, it was what I had expected.
My husband is an only child, so his family was in Canada, but for myself there was no support family-wise. But the fact that we both were fluent in the Canadian languages, in the national languages, made it much more easy for us. And we assimilated into a neighborhood when we bought our first home in Montreal. So raising the children was maybe harder on my side because I was at home and did not have a family support system. However, we had a friend support system.
I was 33 years old, 32, and went into the market, and that is the hardest thing because they accepted me, I could do the job, they need me, but they didn't accept the turban. It is not one company, there are numbers of companies which I went for interview. Secretly they will come out with this and they will say that. So after 4 months I decided, okay, well, I had to remove my turban. So I got the job and I worked with a very good company and I worked in a defense contract with the NATO, where equipment was being made for the NATO. And the beauty is this, that after that they were so happy. So I started, I said, well, I'm going to start it again. I will shock them, put the turban on, come back. So well, I didn't do that, but came to my mind so many times.
Además también poder trabajar.
Also, I would like to work to help ourselves.
Y tratamos de ver la manera de trabajar, trabajamos un tiempo.
And in that time, we tried to see the way to work, and we worked for a while.
Trabajamos 3 años, trabajamos part-time.
We worked 3 years part-time.
Y bueno, después nos dijeron ya la asistenta social nos dijo que ya no estábamos en edad de trabajar.
And then the social helper told us that we were not longer at an age to work.
Porque ya mi esposo tenía 70 años.
Because my husband was 70 years old already.
Y yo tenía 60 y... bueno, lleva 4.
And I was...
66 y 4, 70. Ya tenía yo 66 años.
And I was 66 years old already.
I was involved in sport in my country. I was a runner and I represent my country in the Olympics. So I was involved in sport. I was a FIBA referee. And I like sports, so I started to look on the paper what's available and where I could fit in myself. So I found one guy that was advertising something about refereeing. I said, oh my God, that's my hobby, my life. So I found the guy and he was glad to see me. I explained to him where I'm coming from. So again, like I said, I have to prove that I can do it. And to fit in was also hard. I did not experience something, you could call it discrimination. Everywhere you go, you have to break the ranks, okay? You have to break the ranks. Like it doesn't matter if you are in a factory and you want to bring somebody in or you have somebody you know or something. If you don't have somebody insider to help you, I would say 50% you don't have a chance to get in. I would say really faithfully. Always you have to have somebody there to help you to get somewhere. It's not really bad one way, but it's leave many people out where they have really the qualification.
I suffered a lot. I was without a job for 6 months. I decided a number of times to go back to England. My problem was they told me that I am too experienced or I don't have the Canadian experience. So eventually I applied for a job and I said I got 2 years experience. They called me for interview and they asked me a lot of questions. I said, I don't know. I don't know anything. How could you expect me to know when I got 2 years experience? And they told me I got the job. And I think the problem is with the professionals, the Canadian government and the way the provincial governments work is different from all over the world. For example, if you have a degree or a diploma or whatever it is, say for England or Pakistan, and you can move to any province and do your job. But here, that's not the case.
When I came to Kitchener-Waterloo in '68, I didn't like it at all. I thought, who wants to live in this place after leaving Montreal and Toronto? I thought the bus system was not working. We had no car, and we had to get around, and I didn't like it at all. I thought, well, as soon as my husband is finished, because I was married by then, as soon as my husband is finished at the University of Waterloo, we are leaving. I'm not going to stay here. But then I started teaching, and then I got involved in, believe it or not, the Multicultural Center. I found it, and the people there were very good, and I met people from all over the world. So it was like traveling without leaving, because I met people from so many different countries. Also, there was something at the time called the Folk Arts Council, and I was very much involved in the arts, music and dance. And a gentleman who is no longer alive either, Norm Lin from the Chinese Association, said, do you have enough people in your community to form a group and belong to the Folk Arts Council? So we, two people, Hilda Fletcher and myself, we founded the Caribbean-Canadian Cultural Association. We had a group of kids who would dance and sing and who would have Saturday classes and things like that, and who became part of the Multicultural Center.
In 1966, I took the band over in the Transylvania Club. I started the first German band in Kitchener. We played the first Oktoberfest here in Kitchener. That was 1967 and 1968. We played in Concordia. In the tent, they started off, Concordia 67, 68, and 69 we were the only German band in Kitchener, our band. And I got the tiki-taki in also. That's my thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So anyway, the club itself gives us, even now, a lot of relaxing hours and times. Like we have a Trachtenball, with these nice costumes. We go in there and everybody puts them on. We have up to 250 players in those. And can you imagine now, they all march up and we play with the band and they march up in couples. And so how nice that looks.
I know people that stay in the Scottish community that don't go in to the broader community, and I guess you could say the same with Portuguese community anything. If you stay in that community, I guess I can't explain it, but people that stay in there are never happy here. When I was 15, I knew that I had to serve an apprenticeship. I had to get out of school and I had to leave Scotland. If I wanted to make anything, I had to leave Scotland. People that go to the Scottish dances, have Scottish friends, go to the Masonics, go to the lodges, and they're with Scottish people all the time. They never seem to be happy. They never seem to come satisfied with it. They become more Scottish than they were when they were in Scotland. It's something that I wasn't really involved in there. Why should I come here and spend more time here and get involved in it here?
I'd been in the ministry about 40 years, and then I retired. And the Record, our local newspaper, offered me a column on what was then the religion page. And suddenly, instead of having a captive audience of, as like-minded as a group of United Church people can be, I suddenly had one of the most racial, ethnically, I suppose maybe ethically too, mixed communities in Canada. And at first there was some criticism because I wasn't writing a completely Christian column. So at one meeting where we were talking about this, I got the census figures for KW and took them out. And even I was surprised when I saw the mix, and I had to say, look, this is the community that I'm writing for. And that answered the question, I think, for reasonable people. One lady wrote me and said, how could you say that there are good people outside of Christianity? And I said, well, funny thing is, I've met them.
But the first celebration of our prophet was done in Toronto on the initiative of my wife in 1954. And after that, that celebration never stopped in Toronto, in Ontario. And it carried on. Nowadays, we've got 15 temples in Toronto area. So the community has done very well as far as that is concerned. Yes. I've been involved in most of them, right from the beginning, even up till now. In this community, I've been on the Race Relation Committee. I'm on the executive of the Liberal Association, Federal Liberal Association. I was on the advisory board of your Police Advisory Committee for 5 years. So that kept me actually quite active.
You can live any kind of a life here. You can, it's like living within the world here. You're not just curtailed to your own ethnic group. You can just get out and mix with anybody and enjoy little pieces of everything, which is what I just love about living here. People that come from other countries see us living here, living our ordinary daily lives, and think that we are a miracle. And we are, really. Okay. Friends I have that are Jewish live next door to Arabs, and when somebody's barbecuing, the others come over. We would never, ever do that in our own ethnic background. That just thing. My husband is a Greek Cypriot. We have friends, patients who are Turkish Cypriots. Again, this would not have happened if you go back from whence you came. This is what's wonderful about living here.
everybody who comes here has something to contribute to this society, and it only makes this country rich by having different experiences. So Canadians have to be a little open to immigration. I'm not saying you have to let everybody in, but there has to be understanding that people come here, they are willing to work hard, and they will definitely contribute to Canadian life.
Well, I like to see the language to survive naturally. I'm trying to teach my granddaughters, for instance, a little bit of that language. We have a lot of artists, there are a lot of books published here in Canada, right across Canada, you know, going from Montreal to Vancouver. There are publishing houses where you can purchase the checkbook. As far as the art, we had recently the Canadian Opera Society, I don't know if you're familiar with in Toronto, they had a performance of Smetana's Barted Bride. It's an opera. And outside the two main artists who were, she was Czech and he was Slovak, all the others, all the performers were from all over the world. There was an Australian, English, French, you name it. And they were all singing in the Czech language.
Bilingualism, multilingualism, we have instilled in our children, and that comes from my own country where multilingualism is a fact of life and taught in schools, and to me that is very important, and I wish, you know, more Canadians would embrace that theory that knowing many languages can ease life and can get you all sorts of immerse you in all sorts of different people's lives and understanding of other people's lives.
Nuestra cultura.
Our culture.
Nuestra cultura.
Our
nuestro idioma.
Our language.
Ya. Su música.
Our music.
Su música. Y tantas cosas.
And too many things.
Culture goes with language. And when you lose your language, you lose a fair part of your culture. I do hope in our case at least that two things. One is the family bonds, and the second thing is the spirit of compassion, which is a very important thing in our traditions, especially people coming from our faith. Jains, you know, the spirit of compassion is supposed to be most important value of life, and I hope that will survive.
There are lots of customs that we will hope to stay with us, you know, like respect for the elderly. In our country, we always speak with respect to the elderly. In fact, we kiss the hands of the older people, which is not practiced nowadays here. We just kiss each other. And hospitality is number one. We always have our homes open and welcoming. We offer food and drinks to strangers. No matter what time of the day they come, we welcome them in our homes. Another is piety. We want to retain because the Filipinos are religious people.
These are my value, respect people. I believe that all human beings are equal. They are all children of God. They should be treated with dignity. Try not to tamper with it. And by the way, for me to maintain my dignity in Canada, it was a non-stop struggle. Okay? So, this is what I passed to my kids and my friends. And it was enhanced by Mahatma Gandhi when he said, my body and bone or skull you could crush, but my soul and dignity I would not give to you.
There's more to be done, you know, more about in terms of women, in terms of new Canadians, in terms of employment, in terms of training, in terms of adjustment, because the world is in a turmoil. And I think we need to really have the systems in place, and we need to be aware of the needs in our community. So it is a big challenge in the new millennium to make sure that new Canadians get the right direction, or go in the right direction.
It's important to be a good human being, try to help out another human being, and I pray and I hope that Canada will stay the way it is, in spite that we grumble, we don't like the government, we don't like Medicare, we don't like that. I think it's wonderful. I think it's a wonderful country, in spite that we complain always, but that's a human nature to complain. And if you're honest, and if you work, and you put your mind to it, you can achieve wonderful results.
I think we as immigrants have to realize that we are immigrants. We have come to Canada, we have been accepted, and I think we shouldn't expect or demand that the so-called Canadian society or government support us in all our negative baggage that we brought along. Maybe that is where we have to strive, what we have to strive for. Because quite often, the tension is not between an ethnic group in Canada. It is between one ethnic group and another ethnic group. And I don't know, maybe we should realize that we came away from it. We don't have to continue it.